Coming up on Four Verts today, it's Mock Draft 2.0 time. First one got a lot of good feedback from you guys, so we're going to run it back as long as you guys want more draft content. We'll keep doing so. This is a post-Senior Bowl edition, and there's one big trade in it, so stay tuned for that. All 32 picks in round one coming at you right now. But as we get there, listen, our first mock, like I said, good feedback from you guys. 93 subscribers, a lot of people tuned in. It was one of our better videos so far this in the last month or so. So can we top it? Can we get more than 93 new subs? If you want us to do a mock draft a week between now and the draft, let's top that number. Let's see what we can do today. Hit that sub button. We're covering the Super Bowl as well. Daily NFL news, rumors, draft, free agency content. We'll probably do some kind of free agency video soon with that just about a month away. So rock and roll with us. We appreciate the support. Let's dive in here. Okay, no changes at the top. I'm sticking with Cam Ward out of Miami for the Tennessee Titans. I think there will be debate for what Tennessee should do. I don't think this is a draft where there's a clear and obvious number one pick and a clear and obvious top quarterback, but I would gamble on Ward's traits, and I don't think Tennessee can opt to pass on a QB here, so I'll stick with that. Okay, Abdul Carter goes to Cleveland at number 2. Last week I had Travis Hunter. This week I'm going Abdul Carter. I think he's the best pure pass rusher in this draft. I know there will be a few people that say, he might be a little undersized. I think he's scheme-proof. He plays with speed, power. You could drop him into coverage every once in a while. I kind of think he's a poor man's Micah Parsons. I know it's a lazy comparison because they both played at Penn State, but I think he's got the athletic profile to be 80 to 85% of the player Parsons is. And if you get that, that's a high-level Pro Bowl player and maybe even an All-Pro. And in a draft that's not super top-heavy, I think that's pretty good. And part of the reason I'm taking Carter for the Browns is a little teaser here. Stay tuned. You're going to want to watch this full video. This mock features a Myles Garrett trade. I mentioned a blockbuster trade off the top. That's what it's going to be. You'll have to wait and find out which team ends up trading for him. Okay, at number 3, I really tussled here. To me, if I'm running the Giants, I would draft Travis Hunter, but this is kind of what happens when you keep a lame duck GM and head coach. They are going to draft a quarterback, especially if one of Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders is sitting there. There's been a lot of buzz of Shedeur to the Giants, Brian Daboll, Joe Shane. You can't pass on a QB here and then win 5 games next year and expect to keep your job. The second John Mara kept them, but then in the same day came out and said, I'm losing patience. I just don't think you can risk not bringing in your own quarterback if you're this regime. I would take Hunter, but I think they're going to take Sanders. Speaking of Travis Hunter, he goes to the Patriots at number 4. And listen, if I'm New England, I'm this might be one of the teams where I'd probably play him more on offense because they already have Christian Gonzalez on defense. Maybe he's primarily a receiver, but he plays in some nickel dime packages defensively. They need weapons for Drake May, so I would play him primarily on offense in New England. I think he's a top 5 pick at both corner and receiver, so really comes down to how the team views him. Do they want to play him both ways? I think a little bit you should at least do that. Okay, the Jaguars at number 5 take Mason Graham. I think most people would agree he's probably the safest player in this draft. Worst case scenario, he's like a starter, it feels like. Best case, he's, not a Hall of Famer. I think that would be a bit of a surprise, but, he could be like a second-team All-Pro or something like that, multi-Pro Bowler, 10-year starter type. That's kind of what I see here. I see like a 10-year starter who's very good. Maybe he's never generational, but there's not really generational prospects in this draft other than Travis Hunter and maybe Abdul Carter. I think Mason Graham's really good. Jaguars get a stud on their defensive line. Okay, the Raiders get Tataroa McMillan. They would love Shedeur Sanders to fall here. And if the Giants pass on him for whatever reason, I do think he would likely fall to 6. But in this case, I'm going to take McMillan. You pair him with Brock Bowers. I mean, that's a fun pairing offensively. Obviously, they're going to have to find another path for a quarterback. Maybe they sign Sam Darnold. Maybe they get another bridge guy. Maybe they go with O'Connell for a year and see what he can do with a full season as the starter. Who knows? But I think McMillan's really a stud. And I do think he does have a chance to be generational with his tools. Just got to refine those a little bit. Okay, the Jets. I think this is one of the only picks that is staying the same. Tried to mix it up. Will Johnson, again, Aaron Glenn, he was a Jets draft pick, corner, really good player there. He's their head coach. They could use another piece on the back end. They're probably going to lose DJ Reed in free agency. Kind of like Mason Graham, very safe. Like the risk here is he had some minor injuries in college, but I think he's got multi-time Pro Bowl potential. You put him on the outside. Hopefully Sauce Gardner bounces back, and I think he will with Aaron Glenn's coaching and leadership. That's a pretty damn good quarterback pairing there. Okay, this is a big riser. Mike Green. Talk about this being a post-Senior Bowl edition. He had arguably one of the best weeks at the Senior Bowl. Had such a good 2-day stretch. He actually went home early. I think he was advised to go home and not get injured. The edge out of Marshall goes to Carolina. They just need really good players everywhere. I don't think they're in a spot where they can be picky and choosy on, let's get this position, that position. Like, I think Mike Green's going to go top 15, probably top 10, and they need pass rush help. Derek Brown gets back in healthy on the interior. You add Green at edge. It could be a formidable pairing there. Tyler Warren. This might be a little rich. Tight end is whatever, but I think teams are going to look at what Brock Bowers did last year with the Raiders and be like, Tyler Warren, there's some similarities there. Really get you a lot of yards after the catch for a tight end, which is rare. You can hand him off the ball every once in a while. He's at least a willing blocker. The Saints are in this spot where kind of like a couple other teams where it's like, just take a good player. Like, you're multiple years away. If you do get Kellen Moore for your New Orleans, this is a fun kind of chess piece that he can kind of start to work with early on here. I don't think they're going to be able to bring back Jawan Johnson in free agency. Their cap situation isn't very good. So drafting a guy like Warren, I think, is something that could make some sense here. Bears round out the top 10 with Will Campbell. Again, if you want to go back to that word safe, probably the safest offensive lineman in this draft. Worst case scenario, you kick him inside, play guard. He's really, really good. Kind of like Mason Graham. I just feel like he'll be like a 10-year starter. Is he an all-pro? Is he a Hall of Famer? Probably not, but I think he could be good at tackle. I think he'll be good at guard. I was listening to Dane Brugler on a podcast the other day. He visited him in Dallas when he was in DFW for the East-West Shrine Bowl. Campbell's doing his training here. Just a workaholic. So I think he's a culture guy. We know Ryan Poles in the Bears GM. They value high character guys, and it seems like he checks those boxes, and he's also very good. So the question would just be, depending on how he measures at the combine, are his arms long enough where they're going to start him at left tackle? Do you put him at left guard for a year, then kick him out after Braxton Jones maybe hits free agency next year? We'll see, but he can start somewhere on your offensive line and be solid right away. Shout out your favorite team in the comments section down below. Which NFL squad are you representing? I want to hear from you guys. We're always wanting to know what fan bases are watching for Verts the most, so go ahead and represent. All right, we'll go a little quicker now outside the top 10. This guy's a riser, too. He actually got the flu and didn't get to do much at the Senior Bowl, but a lot of buzz around this kid, Armand Mimbaugh. He's kind of a pure right tackle, but some think he could kick into guard. I think going to left tackle could be a stretch, but if you're the Niners and if you think Trent Williams is going to play for another year or two, they need a good right tackle. And I think this guy might be the best pure right tackle in the draft. I like the fit for San Francisco. Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise. Last time I had him dip into, I think, 20 to Denver. We could all see Jerry pulling the trigger here. And I do think with the hire of Brian Schottenheimer, at his core, he wants to run the football. They need better running backs, and Jeanty is a day one starter. So I could see them just taking him at number 12. Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle out of Ohio State, he is coming off a knee injury, so medicals will be key here. But had he not gotten hurt, some thought he could have been the first lineman taken in this draft, and maybe he still could be. I don't think there's a clear-cut top guy right now. But some believe he's the best pure left tackle in this draft. And Teron Armstead is kind of year-to-year at this point for the Dolphins. He could even retire this offseason, so Simmons could be a plug-and-play guy. Mykel Williams, the edge out of Georgia. I think I had the Colts taking Tyler Warren last time. They took Leatu Latu last year. You take Williams this year. They bring you different things as pass rushers. Ideally, you've got your two edge rushers for the next decade. James Pierce Jr., speaking of pass rushers, the Rams run more of that multiple three-man front. I think James Pierce, based on how he'll measure, will fit that 3-4 outside linebacker edge prototype more. I like the fit with the Falcons, and they have been lacking pass rushers for years. I think they add one here. Okay, 16, the Arizona Cardinals select Kelvin Banks Jr. They've got Paris Johnson, obviously. Banks, kind of like Campbell, some think he could play tackle, he could play guard. The measurements will be key there. But, again, I think he's a guy you just draft, and somewhere on your offensive line he could start for you day one. Luther Burden the third. I just, until they actually do it, I'm not convinced the Bengals, A, break the bank for Jamar Chase, and B, bring back T. Higgins, who most project is going to make more than $30 million per year. Even if he takes a discount, you're talking about like 28. The Bengals historically don't hand out multiple massive contracts like that, especially in the same offseason. I think Higgins walks, and they get Luther Burden. Tyler Booker, another really safe player. I think he's a plug-and-play guard. Seattle needs help up front on that offensive line. The floor is very high. I don't know how high the ceiling is, but I think he's a starter for a long time in this league. Okay, Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle out of Ole Miss, had a great week at the Senior Bowl. I could see him going top 20. We know Todd Bowles likes defensive linemen that are kind of versatile. He could play some edge in some spots. You can kick him inside, especially on pass downs as well. He's a bit of a tweener. He's about 295, but, they got Kalijah Cansey, was it last year, 2 years ago? You had Nolan to that group. I think that's pretty good front with Vita Vea still there as well. Okay, Emeka Egbuka to the Broncos. I'm going to keep mocking receivers to Denver until free agency's here, and if they add someone there like a T. Higgins, who knows? But you got to get someone else in there. Buka is a good intermediate guy, can work the middle of the field, slants, crossers, all that stuff. High character. I think he'd fit in well with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Okay, here we go. Jackson Dart. There's a lot of buzz there right now. Some believe he could overtake Shedeur Sanders as QB2. Who knows what every team's big board is. I think it's going to be one of those deals where every team is going to have these QBs ranked differently. I really do. Now, to me, it's Cam Ward 1, Shedeur 1B, but there is a slight gap there, and then a bigger drop-off to Dart. But I think Dart has established himself as that third guy, and teams are desperate. Are the Steelers desperate? Is Mike Tomlin desperate? How long's his leash in Pittsburgh? I don't think they're bringing back both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, so you bring one of those guys back, you draft Jackson Dart, I could see it happening. Shamar Stewart, the edge out of Texas A&M, also had a great week at the Senior Bowl. He left early along with Mike Green. If I was a betting man, he'd probably go earlier, but just the way this mock fell, the Chargers get him here, and Jim Harbaugh loves him, some trenches players. Stewart, a big boy, 6'6", 290. You can move him around. This is a traits over production pick, but if he reaches his potential, and I think in a Jesse Minter defense, he'd have a really good chance of doing so. Benjamin Morrison goes to the Packers at 23. Jair Alexander's future is muddy at best. Even if he's back next year, it's probably just next year. They could use another corner there. So it was corner or receiver for me, and I think Morrison was a good value pick here. Malachi Starks for the Vikings. I know they're going to be scarred because the last time they took a Georgia safety, Lewis Cine, he completely busted. But Harrison is a year-to-year player at this point. Some people believe he could even retire this offseason. Starks, you can move around. He can play free. He can play nickel. You can put him in the box. I love his versatility. I think he's probably more of a top 15 caliber player in this draft, but sometimes safeties dip. I think it's really good value here, and I think Brian Flores could get creative with him. Matthew Golden, keep him in the Lone Star State. The Texans are going to need to get a receiver because Tank Dell, good chance he doesn't even play this year with that brutal injury he suffered on Christmas. And even if you bring back Stephon Diggs, you're probably going to need a third guy. And if Diggs is back, it's probably on a one-year deal. So I think Golden makes sense. I think he can be at least a number 3 as a rookie and potentially a 2 in the right offense. Josh Connerly Jr., the offensive tackle out of Oregon, he goes to the Rams. Unclear what they're going to do with Alaric Jackson at left tackle. He's a free agent. Do they bring him back? Do they not? They're the type of franchise that, unless you're like a blue chip guy, they're not going to overpay for a B-level player. I could see them just drafting Connerly and resetting left tackle. Jack Sawyer to the Ravens. I mean, I feel like he would just fit right in. He'd probably have 8 sacks as a rookie because that's kind of what Baltimore gets out of defensive players. That would be a great fit for him. He'd be a great fit in their system. Again, high character guy. He would fit very, very well. Okay, Jalen Walker, the linebacker, edge hybrid out of Georgia. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Some people think he's a top 10 player, but they don't know exactly what position he's going to play. I think your coaching staff needs to have a vision for him. Is he a Nolan Smith type where he's a little undersized? It takes a little while, but by year 2 or 3, he's an excellent speed rusher. We'll see, but I think Detroit could look to add to that front 7 in this draft. All right, I teased it earlier. Trade alert. It is the Washington Commanders who have a ton of cap space and need blue-chip players on defense. They pull the trigger on Myles Garrett. Number 29 overall pick goes to Cleveland this year. Number 79 overall pick, which comes via Miami. And then a first and a third next year. So you're saying, Harrison, wait, 2 firsts, 2 thirds? Remember, you got to remember where these teams are picking. And the number 29 pick, if you want to let's use the Bears as an example. The 10th pick is a lot more valuable than 29. So 2 1s and 2 3s, if I'm Cleveland and I'm trading with the team in the late 20s this year and I think they're going to be good next year, I need more picks because if Washington is even just a playoff team next year, their first isn't going to be until the 20s. So I think in a team like their case, or if the Eagles were to trade for him, someone who's drafting late Detroit, it is going to be 2 firsts plus more. So 2 1s, 2 3s to get Myles Garrett to Washington. What say you? Will Myles Garrett get traded? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I do think the Browns should trade him. I think it's a great opportunity to hit the reset button because let's face it, as long as the Watson contract is contributing to their books, it's going to be hard to compete. Now, there are exceptions. We saw Denver do it last year, but I would trade him and try to kind of view for the next 3 to 5 years and not just 2025. But again, you have a head coach and GM that have been there for a while, so it's kind of tough. Okay, at number 29, now the Browns have the pick, Kenneth Grant. So you've traded Garrett, but you've gotten Abdul Carter, Kenneth Grant, and you have 3 more picks coming from Washington, 1 this year, 2 more next year. And again, they could be drafting a QB next year, which is why I like getting the capital for 2026. Okay, Jahdae Barron, the defensive back out of Texas. He's played some corner, played some safety, nickel. I kind of view him as like a poor man's Tyrann Mathieu type. Like he can play all over. You need to have a vision for him. Sean McDermott's a smart defensive guy. I think he would fit in well. Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan. Dallas Goedert will probably be back next year, but he's getting older. He's around 30. They don't really have good tight ends behind him, so maybe for his rookie year, he's their number 2, and then after that, they move on from Goddard. That's like classic Howie Roseman. And then Marion Hampton sneaks in here at number 32. The Chiefs' running back situation moving forward is interesting. Pacheco, since he's been back, hasn't looked great. He'll be entering the final year of his rookie deal next year. Kareem Hunt's been a good story, but he'll be 30. Is he someone they bring back? And if they do, is he a starter? Probably not. I think Hampton starts from day 1. Pacheco's like their short yardage guy, and that's their pairing next season. Okay, there you go. Mock Draft 2.0 post-Senior Bowl edition in the books. Again, we got 93 subs last week on our first mock. Can we top it this week? Do you want more draft content? Hit that subscribe button. We'll keep bringing it here on 4 Verts.